Robert Eggers is someone that when I saw his first feature, The Witch, I reached out to him because I wanted to work with the guy. And then I was lucky enough to work with him on his next feature, The Lighthouse, and it was a very good experience. I really enjoyed working with him because of his detail, because he makes a personal cinema. He does a cinema that uses cinema language. Um, very little coverage, very designed shots, working with Jaron Blaschke as DP. They work very closely. It's a combination of being very well designed and very well realized, but also he's an actor. He was an actor. He speaks an actor's language. So I love working with him because he works with a great kind of back and forth in the scenes and gives me lots of details and lots of challenges. And I feel always very engaged with when I'm with him. But I think most importantly, he's a guy of the cinema, but he's also a student of history, and he loves history so deeply, you feel it, that it's infectious, and you get drawn into those worlds with him, and as an actor, you just want to help him realize them as you can in your role. I like returning to work with directors whose work I like to be a part of and that I like working with. And he's way up there. So he just contacted me and said, look, this film is about Vikings, big, tall Norse guys, with shoulders like this and 40 years old max, But I have something for you to do in this. So that was kind of good. He wrote this. I understand. Directors say this sometimes, but I think he did invent this character for me. And it's a beautiful character because even though it's less expansive and I'm very much part of the ensemble in this movie, it's a very interesting role because it's very multidimensional. And what I do have to do in this story is very pivotal and also very essential. I mean, there's no fat in this role. So it's very nice for that reason. He is the fool to the king. He's like a jester. But he also, and this isn't apparent immediately, he's a sort of a shaman. He's a priest of sorts. And he conducts a very important ritual in the story. So I would say he's an ally and he's a friend of the king, Arvendir, played by Ethan Hawke. Robert kind of told me what he needed, and I think he tapped into certain things he'd seen as far as my energy and my sense of humor and my love to do physical things, and I think he really set me up to do those things. So preparation, I get sucked into his research. He says, listen, what do you want me to send you? And I'm like, bring it on, and I'll cherry pick. I'll see what's useful to me. And in fact, I got very sucked into it because this was a time in history and a culture that I didn't know a lot about. So while really maybe it wasn't necessary to go in great depth, it was a pleasure because I learned something and I started to understand his attachment to it and his love for it. And you get sucked in. And then when you arrive and you see these sets that are made with such detail and such care, it helps with the pretending. If acting on some level is really pretending, everything's there. You enter that world and you fold into that world. It's a big, muscular film, much, much bigger than The Lighthouse. He still is approaching it with the same kind of detail and the same kind of care. And while I may sound Pollyanna, at this point, the producers are fantastic because they're supporting him in that approach. And a lot of that has to do with not just detail in the set, but these beautiful shots that are very designed, that play as one and have inside each shot has a rhythm and a story and a dynamic that's beautiful on its own. And he doesn't cover things. He doesn't protect himself and make the film in the editing room, although he's got a great editor in Louis Ford, who he's worked with 2 times before. You know, there's always challenges to editing, but he doesn't have all standard coverage. So there's a kind of concentration and a kind of engagement that's really all in when you are a performer in these shots. There's a precision and there's a demand on you to be really concentrated, and you're never outside of it because you have to concentrate so hard, be involved so hard, and be absorbed into the world to make the shot work. It's the same guy, but he's got like a double life. And this ritual that he does, as a priest to this Loki figure, is secret. It's something sacred. It's something that's only reserved for the king and his son. Robert's like a scholar in his approach to this stuff because he loves it. And of course, it's a preparation. So it's basically reading about the different figures, the customs, some historical facts, what their movements were. And whether that's important in order to play these roles, I don't know, but I enjoy it. And it gives an authority to the pretending that you wouldn't have if you didn't have an imagination or a taste or some information about that world. Because I feel like every time you learn something, it kind of expands your imagination or how you imagine a world could be, and it helps you not limit what you think is possible in the scene or in the movie. They built a town there on this cliff, basically. Very beautiful, this cliff was made for cinema, or cinema was made for this cliff, I don't know. But they built this very authentic, very beautiful town, and all the bells and whistles. I arrived and I realized what a large production this is, how muscular, how detailed, how strong it is. There were sheep, there were slaves, there were townspeople, there was lots going on. And given the fact that Robert has these beautiful designed shots, it's a lot to wrestle with. So, but he's up to the challenge. But I think it's going to be spectacular. Spectacular movie. A lot of my stuff is interior and fairly intimate, but some of the action sequences with the boats and with battles is going to be incredible. The film language that's being used and the precision and the passion that Robert and Jaron and the whole team has, this way of shooting a lot of big action sequences without a lot of cutting away. You really experience it. You aren't numbed just by noise and by fast cutting. These shots are designed. There's a beauty to it. I think it's special for that. From what I've seen and what we've been shooting, it really taps into what you can only do in a movie. You want them to have an experience, to enter into this world, to consider another way of being, to consider another time, to consider themselves in that other time. Of course, there's a story, a very complicated story on one level and a very simple story on another level. But I think what's going to be really exciting is to see a world that they haven't seen before. And I suppose everybody says that when they make a film because they're very, precious about their little world. But I think the amount of research and the amount of support in what Robert's doing is really impressive.